so for nice to meet you. We will be sending out previous sessions to everyone, and we'll also put them on the Creative Careers platform as well. So let me share the PowerPoint. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see that. Can you see that, Elaine?
Sorry, 1 second. Yes, I can.
Okay,
Thanks.
so today we are talking about this is Making Your Business Work too. And today we're talking about business processes and relationships, um, which is a really useful one to go through. This session and the activities in it really help you identify exactly what your business will do and also who will help you with your business or who might the people be that will help you with it. So it's really about identifying what's going on. So this is the middle. We're in the middle session of our 9-part series. So this is session 5, Making Your Business Work, session 2, business processes, blueprint modeling, and business relationships. And then you can see tomorrow we've got contracts, invoicing, pricing, and startup funding. And then in April, we have the 3 engaging with customer sessions, which are about marketing, making marketing plan, and more in-depth finance resources. Also, if you've missed the previous 3, you can see what they were about. And we can send those sessions to you as well. So please don't panic. We also record all of the sessions. We will have all of the videos put onto our platform soon. So hopefully that will be helpful for everybody as well. You can go back onto these as well. Okay. So as I said before, our support sessions are based on the Nesta Creative Enterprise Toolkit. This was a resource that was developed by the government to help creative businesses specifically. And it's very visual, it's very straightforward, it's divided into several sections. There are worksheets attached to the download that you can use, and there are also case studies as well. So it's a really useful tool to use. We hope you enjoy it. So basically, we're basing our sessions today on booklet 3, which is about making your business work. So as I said before, if you haven't downloaded that, please do so. The link is in the chat and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Okay, so creating a sustainable business, creating a business which will survive and have longevity is quite key. And the elements involved in that are things like having a clear idea of what you want your business to do, knowing there'll be an audience, a market for what you're going to offer, and developing a business process. So this is really what we're going to talk about today. And there's a quote there from Rachel Horrocks, who is a product designer in the UK, and she's talking about how doing this for herself was really helpful. She stopped her being overwhelmed. She was able to identify, what her business was going to do, what the processes were, where she needed help, what she was going to do herself, and maybe which elements she needed to pay for. But doing this process we're going to do today can be really helpful. We don't expect you to do it in the session. We're outlining a process that you can try at home, and you may want to do it 3 or 4 times to kind of try different iterations of how your business idea might work. But it's just this is giving you a process to help you clarify your processes. So business processes. We're going to talk about blueprint modeling. And a blueprint, when it's used in design, is a plan for something, and we're going to show you how that works. Essentially, it's a plan. It's not a classic business plan, which is about money. It's more a plan which is about what you will do, what your business is going to do, and exactly the stages that will happen. So you're going to clarify your business processes. We're also going to talk about relationship modeling, and this is where you're thinking about which relationships will you need? Like, who will you work with when your business? Will you do everything yourself, or will there be outside sourced elements which you need to do? And all of these things together will help you clarify how your business is going to run and who's going to help you. So blueprint modeling is a really, really useful exercise. It helps you visualize, which is particularly helpful for creatives, I think, what's going to happen and how your business is going to work. And it helps you identify all the activities involved in a day-to-day plan. And there's different ways of doing it, which we're going to talk about today. It can seem really, really simple, or when I show you what it is, you'll go, oh, well, that's really straightforward. But it's something that people don't necessarily think about in terms of a business. You might think about using this process if you're going through a design project or things like that. But essentially, it's a visual list or something that is like a mind map, that kind of thing. So questions to ask yourself before you're starting this, which can be really helpful, are how do I imagine my business operating? And this is when you're actually thinking about whether about your product or your service, what will happen day to day, what are you actually going to do, and what are the stages of that business. You also need to think about how you're going to find and engage your customers. Are you going to reach out to them online? Is it going to be through Etsy? Are you going to sell your product through a third party so they'll sell it for you? Going to think about how you're going to make or produce or manage the service that you do for them. How are you going to generate what they want? How will that work? And also, how will it be distributed? So these questions are really, really helpful. Elaine, please chip in at any time if you want to.
I will.
Okay. So blueprint modeling, it really helps you identify the process, as we said, but it helps you to plan your time and also create a realistic schedule. A way of thinking about this is to think about engagement stage, development stage, and delivery stage of your project and this of your business. And this is really key. Basically, there are lots of different types of businesses. We might have people on this call with very, very different businesses, but essentially, whether they're service-based or client-based or you're making something, these three stages are the things that people have in common. So engagement stage is when you are, planning who your prospective clients are and how they're going to get them, how you're going to get them to buy your product or your service. Development is the time it takes you to develop your product or service for them. And delivery is how long it takes to get it to them. So these are kind of in common for everybody. So essentially, these activities either take place in front of the customer, so on stage. An example of an on-stage activity would be selling to customers at a market, or out of sight, which could be backstage. So a backstage activity would be I am doing my social media content and I'm putting it online and I'm actually creating the goods that I'm going to sell at the market. So in any business, there are parts of the business which happen with the customer and there are parts of the business which happen without the customer that you do beforehand. So thinking about it on stage and backstage is quite helpful. When you look at the blueprint diagram, and I'll show you in a minute, areas charged in grey are things that can't be directly charged to the customer. So in other words, some things you can bill a customer for and some you can't. You can't charge your customer for market research, you can't charge your customer promotion or the cost of selling to them. You need to fund this from profit, but other things you can charge them for, you're charging for your time, for your expertise, for your craftsmanship, for the product that you're giving them. So this is really key to think about these things. You can't have too much backroom research and development because actually that's not making any money. But equally, you need the backroom research and development in order to have a sustainable business and maintain long-term clients. So balancing these two things is quite key. So here's an example of a blueprint where it's been kind of written about as if it was for a design company. But the way to use this is to think about the different stages. So if you look at the narrow column on the left-hand side, it says engagement, development, delivery, and they were the things that we've just been talking about. And then the darker grey panels are the things which are you can't charge for. Backstage are things that customers don't see. On stage are things that customers do see. And you can see down the far right, there's a column and it says where you start. It's like the progress of what's happening. Now you can fill this in with pen or you can print it out or you can photocopy it, or you might want to print it out and do sticky notes. When you download the Nesta Creative Enterprise Toolkit, all of these resources at the end, so you can print them out. But Elaine we also make them into worksheets and we send them out.
Yeah, we send them to you.
Yeah, so for example, this design company is saying, okay, in our engagement stage, which is where they are sourcing and engaging with new customers, the backstage element will be customer and market research, and an on-stage element might be networking or exhibiting at trade fairs. So they're being seen by people who might buy their product who have stalls. In the development stage, that's like developing the briefs and the ideas, thinking about the products are. And on stage might be showing customers our early prototypes of what we're going to make. And then in the delivery stage, it's things like design reviews and making decisions, which is backstage with the company, and then actually presenting to a customer or client. So this is the graphic design studio. So hopefully this will help you. The worksheet on the next page can be edited to make it appropriate for your business idea as well. So just think about these ideas of behind the scene, without the customer, backstage, on stage with the customer, and then engagement, development, and delivery. And then it's really clear and helpful. So thinking about these, as I say, engagement, just to remind you, is the time it takes to plan and persuade customers to gain customers. Development is where you're developing the product or service for them, and delivery is getting that product or service actually to the customer. So here we go. This is the clear worksheet. It can be really, really useful. Please have a go at filling it in. Hopefully everyone understands that. And you can do as many of these as you want to. So you might have an example where you're thinking, oh, actually, I haven't decided if I'm going to retail my own ceramics and I'm going to sell them directly at markets and crafts fairs, or through online, a website, through my own website, so direct to customer, and I'm going to post them and I'm going to package them, or actually would I prefer to sell through other clients? Okay, so I've got a third party who's going to sell for me. So think about this. You can do different versions of it, which can be really useful. Okay, you might also like to draw this blueprint. You don't have to use the version with the template. You might think, oh, I don't really like that. It doesn't appeal to me. It's not, it's not making sense to me. I'd rather do like a hand-drawn version. And you can do a kind of a drawn blueprint that's quite like a diagrammatic or like a flowchart, or you could do one where it's very much more like a mind map made free, which is sketchy. You might decide to do these formats before you do the bigger worksheet, or you might decide to do it the other way. Things to think about are, again, and this relates to every blueprint, how do I imagine my business operating? How do I find and engage my customers? How will I generate what they want, and how will I distribute it? So here are some examples where you can kind of draw it out. So here's a very diagrammatic one, and this is for a product-based furniture company, and they're going, okay, these are our stages of our business. This is what our business is going to do, and this is in the order that they'll happen. We're going to design the chairs. We're going to make a prototype of the chairs. We're going to contact a manufacturer because we're not making them ourselves. We can't possibly make enough chairs. It's not a craft business. We want to be making hundreds, possibly thousands of chairs to order. So we're going to contact manufacturers. Then the manufacturers will produce the chairs. Then we're going to find a retailer and we're going to sell to retailers. In this diagram, this does show all the processes of the business, but it actually makes it seem as if that one happens directly after the other. They do in the very initial stages of this business, but once you're a bit up and running, you'll actually be doing these stages at the same time. So you'll be designing new product while the previous products are being made by the factory, and you'll be selling to retails probably seasonally. So it becomes that you're doing many of these things at once. When you have a business that's up and running, it isn't as straightforward as I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. But this diagram is really helpful for making these furniture designers think about, actually, these are the things I need to do with my business. So starting off very simply like this could be really, really helpful, because it helps you identify, actually, what am I going to do, what the stage is? Because it's not as straightforward as, I make embroidered cats and I'm going to sell them, which is only 2 stages. You need to think about, actually, where do you buy the materials? Are you going to make all of them? How are you selling them? Where are you selling them? And how often are you designing them? Anything you want to add, Elaine? Feel free to chip in.
Yeah, I think one of the things as well with the things that we're showing you is that they're kind of models, frameworks, they're concepts, they're taking you through the different stages of a business. So I think it's important to also think, well, I kind of like that, but I'm going to change some of the language because I don't really relate to that language, or it sounds a bit, it's not quite the kind of language I would use or relevant for me. So, feel free. You're creative, you're the business developer. So, you can adjust these to what might work for you as well. So, they're just really good examples to get you thinking about all those sort of different and important kind of stages that moves the business essentially from, I guess, an idea to a business. How am I actually going to make money? What are the practical things that I need to do? I need to really think about in terms of getting my business into something that I can be commercial and can actually bring in revenue and make me a living from. Rather than perhaps something that's more of a hobby, or something that you just do on the side.
Yeah, I think that's really valid. So there are many different ways of doing it, and I'll show you the others in a second. Also, you might just do a very sketchy, messy kind of mind map drawn version of how you think your business works. And this is really interesting. If we go back to this one, it's very linear, isn't it? There's a start and then it goes step by step through each stages. The interesting thing about this one is it possibly a little bit more realistic to what a business actually is, in that the person's thought about, okay, the product design, the prototype, protection, which is copyright of that idea, and then exit. This is if they're wanting to sell the business, but they've also thought about, where am I going to get my investment from? What do I need to resolve? So up here it says test and resolve ergonomics for the chairs. Then they're thinking about the technology, they're thinking about distribution, so it's got many stages. Don't worry as well if you're thinking, oh, my business idea is really quite small, and I think it's going to be me and maybe somebody posting stuff. That's fine as well. It doesn't have to be as complex as this. This is someone who's coming up with a business idea that they want to be quite large. They want to enter some competitions. They want to get investors. So think about those things too. Okay. So I've got 3 different ways of kind of approaching this. You could use the blueprint modeling diagram, which is probably really useful in that you're thinking about what's happening behind the scenes of the customers, what's happening with the customers, so backstage and on stage, and it has those 3 stages: engagement, development, and delivery. Or you might do a flow chart of it, or you could do kind of a mind map or a diagram or sketches of how this works. I think the thing as well that's common about all of these is you're not just writing a list, you're actually seeing elements of the business in relation to each other. And that happens on all of these. It happens on the worksheet, it happens on the flow chart, it happens even on this sketch, which seems very busy. When you just write a list, it's hard to see the relationships between different elements of your business. So breaking it out like this and drawing it or putting it together in whatever format next to each other helps you identify how those things connect. Okay, so the main things I would say about this is do it in really small steps. Maybe try to map the entire process, include as much detail as possible. Take your time. You might do a little bit of it this afternoon and then you might look at it again next week. You might have a different idea for how it might run, which has come out of looking at the process. It will take time. We don't expect you to be able to do this in half an hour. We don't expect to be able to do it in an hour. These are just kind of guidelines to give you resources to plan and think about what will actually happen in detail, because that's obviously really helpful. It takes, as Elaine said, something from an idea into a little bit more of a reality, and it helps you understand the reality involved.
Yeah, and I also think it helps you to, which is what Lucy's moving on to now, actually. It helps you to think about, where are my strengths? Because, you'll have strengths in your business, but there may be areas that actually they're not your strengths. And maybe that's where you could reach out, get some help, get some support with, or you can even delegate it to somebody else potentially, depending on, what it is. So I think putting that into a sort of bigger picture, of the blueprint modeling really helps you identify, okay, I know my strengths are within the kind of designing and making process, for example. And I want to focus most of my energy and resources on that. And my kind of weaker areas, doing the accounting or financing or invoicing, the admin. So I might see if I can get someone to help me with that, or do some automated processes with that to cut down on my time. So it's sort of looking at that, where might I need help and support, which is sort of the part that we're also going to touch in on now as well.
Yeah, it might be that when you first start your business, you are doing nearly everything. Yeah. And maybe the only relationship you have is with the person who made your website for you, and maybe the postman, yeah, or the delivery service that you use. But this is an example, like this one here with the furniture is a really good example of what would happen at a slightly later stage. Somebody initially might not have a manufacturer, and they might design, make their prototype, produce their chairs and sell them. Okay. But very quickly, that's going to get very onerous. If they start to sell quite a lot of chairs, they can't possibly make them all, which is where the other stages come in. Okay. So now we're going to talk about business relationships. So hopefully doing your business processes, as Elaine said, will help you start to identify, oh, what are my relationships? Am I doing everything involved in my business? You might well be at the beginning. Or are there other people who are involved, or other companies or organizations? Or is it reciprocal engagement where maybe someone is designing a website for you because you are making the ceramics for their cafe, for example? So that not these relationships don't necessarily even have to involve money changing hands. Sometimes they can be in kind as well. So let's go back to yesterday. We talked about the promise triangle. And if you weren't here yesterday, here's the diagram of it. And the promise triangle is really about the relationship between you and your customers and the people that help you make your business run. So essentially, what you're doing is you promise your customers you're going to deliver a product or service. They expect that you're going to keep that promise. You work with others possibly to enable the promise to be delivered. And this is the promise triangle. So this is kind of part of where the relationships might come from. But also, you may, as Elaine said, when you've been doing your business blueprint, it might have identified areas where you think, actually, this is really not my expertise. Actually, I think I do need an accountant to do my tax return, or I do need help with designing my website, or actually, I would like somebody to help me with the manufacturing, or I need a really great relationship with a supplier who's regularly going to provide me the raw materials at a good price. So, nobody's got a business that exists purely on its own. Even if you're a craft business, you are getting your materials that you make something from somebody, and that's a relationship at that point. Okay, so there are 4 areas to consider when thinking about business relationships, and this helps you to identify what they might be. So put 4 areas of what happens in a business. There are generators and ideas generators, and this is probably you. This is where you're kind of originating activities, shaping, combining ideas, deciding what the design and the concept development is, coming up with what the business actually does, what the product is, and all that kind of thing. It's likely that this is the bit that you will definitely do. It's your business. This is the bit you probably want to do. There's also the realizer. This is the person who turns the ideas, or the company that turns the ideas into a finished product. Again, it might be you, but this is where it might involve a third party, another person who's doing it. So it might be a manufacturer, it might be someone who promotes content for you. It's where raw materials or ideas are, translated into completed outputs. This is the point, this realization bit, when businesses grow, when people usually take on some help and they realize they can't be the idea generator and the realizer themselves. They need a bit of help, and they probably don't want to replace themselves as idea generator, but they'd like a bit of help with realizers. Then there's distributor, and they distribute finished products, services, or experiences. So maybe they're doing marketing, maybe they're delivering things for you, maybe it's an online platform which helps sell for you. Maybe it means where you're retailing to somebody that's involved. Okay. So, this is where somebody's getting your product or service out to the customers. Again, in some industries, this is you. If you're freelance and your business is about being freelance, this is actually you. But maybe if you then take on an agent for your freelance work, they are part of the distribution. And then you have the customer. That's the 4th element of the kind of relationship in any business. The customers buy and use or experience your product or service, and they receive or consume the idea or the service. And you can't take them out of this. It's really important to think about that as well. You may well be a customer of somebody else, because you might be a customer because you're buying fabric from somebody, or wood, or materials, or software from someone. So you, at the same time as having a business, you are also a customer of someone else's business. So thinking about that can be quite key. Did you want to add anything, Elaine?
No, I think that sort of touches in on how important those relationships are,
Yeah.
and about sort of recognizing yourself, how you go about sort of developing those relationships and maintaining them and sort of growing them, the impact that can have on your business, and sort of how helpful it can be actually,
Yeah.
getting the right people and making the right connections to help grow your business and develop it.
It could be as straightforward as, let's say you make illustrated cards, and you might think, well, I am the ideas generator and I am the realizer, but maybe you sell them on Etsy, and Etsy, the platform, is the distributor. It's one of the distributors for you, and then you have a customer. So even in a very straightforward, what seems like a very small business, there are still 2 or 3 business relationships. There's the one between you and Etsy, there's the one between you and your customer. There is you as a customer buying the card and the art materials that you make the cards with. So there are many relationships going on. Okay, so here's an example of a diagram relating to this for a furniture designer, and their generator is them. When it's the ones that are in lilac are where things are happening online. Okay, so the generator activities are designing the furniture, doing an online competitor review. The realize is making the prototype, contacting retailers and producing the prototype. For some reason my teams won't minimize, Elaine, so you might have to read the bottom 2 out because I can't see the one.
The bottom
I
2
just
are
can't
the
see
distributor.
Yeah.
Is find the retailer and sell to the retailer.
Yeah.
And then the customer is in sort of the darker purple. And that's social media research, online product review, and online review of retailers.
Thanks, Elaine. Yeah. So all 4 areas of these of your business, need to be in place to help it survive. But you don't need to do them all yourself, as we've been talking about. The likelihood is you might do like 3 of them at least at the beginning, but as your business grows, you want to expand them. And what the business that you're doing and how you want to run it determines which activities are involved. So this is obviously one relating to furniture design, but in your boxes for generator, realizer, distributor, and customer, it could be really, really different, right? What you're writing about could be really different. And you can use the worksheet on the next page to try out different scenarios. So this is an example of the worksheet for relationship modeling, which comes from the Nesta Creative Enterprise Toolkit, and we'll make it into a worksheet and send it to you as well. As you can see, it talks about generator, realizer, distributor, and customer, which is really, really helpful. And it also talks about you can take this information from your blueprint modeling and turn it into relationship modeling. So this is really starting to think about, what happens when, and am I doing it or is somebody else doing it? So this is just a start of thinking about relationship modeling. Okay, I'm aware of the time. So tomorrow, now we've started thinking about relationship modeling, we're going to be talking about contracts, which is kind of an agreement between you and somebody else you might be buying something from or doing work for. We're going to talk a little bit about invoicing, about pricing, and startup funding. Just a reminder about the Creative Careers Launchpad Challenge. It's great that you're following along with these sessions to help you develop your business idea, but we would love it if you're able to enter our competition. After these sessions happen in April, we also are doing in-person support sessions when Elaine and I are going to be on each campus. So people that have been involved who want to come and show us what they've been doing or considering entering the competition can come in. The deadline for the enterprise competition is after everybody's final hand in. I think it's in June, and we have great cash prizes. Our main prize is £1,000 for the best creative business idea. But again, you don't have to enter. We're very happy that you're here following along with this process, but we'd love it if you did. These are some kind of categories to help guide you, and it might help you think about what kind of business, if you're still identifying what your business, what you want it to do. You could think about, is my business a lifestyle business? Am I making something to order? Am I freelancing, selling a skill or service? Or am I innovating and I've got a very, innovative product that I want to take to business, where I'd need funding to do it? Or maybe you have an idea for a social enterprise, which is a company which benefits or supports a community as well as being a functioning business. And this is the brief. Essentially, what we want you to do is create and showcase an innovative idea, product or service that makes a difference to a community, client or consumer. And we ask people to submit a 5-minute video. There'll be more guidance about that later on in these talks. I'm going to do a specific talk that's about how to enter. So here is the link. If you haven't signed up for tomorrow and you'd like to, here is the QR code. And then, as I said before, in April, we have the 3 series about engaging with customers, and then we have the Launchpad Challenge, which is about how to enter, and we have in-person support on each campus as well. Stay in touch with us here. If you haven't put your name onto this list, this is our list of people who are engaging with the Launchpad sessions. It'd be great. It means we've got a database of who's coming. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'll stop recording. And if anyone has any questions. Sorry, I'm just stopping. There we go.
I've got